My mother abandoned 10-year-old me to raise her perfect son, but my grandma made her pay for it. I was only 10 years old when my mother decided that I was too much of a burden. She had a new family now, and I didn't fit in with the picture she had created. So, she made the decision to get rid of me, as if I didn't matter at all. She gave me away, choosing to raise her perfect son instead. My grandma Brooke took me in and loved me like I was her own. Years went by and I thought I had put everything behind me, but then the woman who had abandoned me showed up at my door one day, begging for something. For forgiveness, maybe. There's a moment in life when you realize that some wounds never really heal. For me, that moment came when I was 32 years old, standing by my grandmother's grave. The only person who had ever truly loved me was gone. And there, across the cemetery, stood my mother, the woman who had given birth to me but never truly cared for me, standing with her new family. She didn't even look in my direction. She didn't care. I hadn't seen my mother in many years, not since she decided that my brother was the one worth raising, while I wasn't. It was a rainy day, and the heavy rain soaked through my black dress as I stood at the cemetery, watching as they lowered Grandma Brooke's casket into the ground. My mother, Pamela, stood with her perfect family under an umbrella, her husband, Charlie, and their son, Jason. Jason was her golden child, the one she loved, the one she always wanted. And there I was, the child she abandoned. She didn't cry. She just dabbed at her eyes, pretending to be sad for the people around her. Once the ceremony was over, she turned and walked away without even speaking to me, just like she had done 22 years ago when I was 10. I was left standing alone, staring at the fresh mound of dirt that now covered the only person who had ever really cared about me. "I don't know how to do this without you, Grandma," I whispered to the grave, the weight of loss heavy in my chest. I was born from a short affair, something that my mother never wanted to acknowledge. To her, I was nothing more than an inconvenience, a mistake from her past that she couldn't get rid of fast enough. When I was 10, she married my stepfather, Charlie, and they had their perfect son, Jason. That's when I stopped mattering to her. Suddenly, I was nothing more than a reminder of the life she didn't want anymore. I still remember the day she told me I wouldn't be living with them anymore. It's a memory I'll never forget. "Rebecca, come here," she called out to me from the kitchen table. She was sitting there with Grandma Brooke, and I could see the look in her eyes. I walked toward her, feeling a flicker of hope. Maybe this was the moment when she would tell me that things were going to be okay. Maybe she had changed her mind and wanted me to stay with her. I could feel the anticipation building up inside me as I walked in. "Yes, Mom?" I asked, trying to sound as hopeful as I could. She didn't even look at me as she spoke. "You're going to live with Grandma now. It's better this way," she said coldly. At first, the words didn't even make sense to me. "What? For the weekend?" I asked, trying to understand. "No," she said, her voice emotionless. "Permanently. Grandma is going to take care of you from now on. This is what's best." I could feel my heart drop in my chest as the words sank in. It didn't make sense. Why? What had I done wrong? Grandma's face was full of pain, but she didn't speak. She just sat there, watching me with sad eyes. My mom looked at me for a second, her gaze cold and detached. "You're a burden," she added, as if that was all there was to it. "It's not my fault, but you need to go." I couldn't believe it. I felt like I was choking on my own words, unable to find anything to say. My mom didn't care. She had made her decision, and that was it. Grandma stood up quickly and stepped toward me, wrapping her arms around me tightly. "Don't worry, sweetheart. We'll make it work," she whispered. It wasn't fair. I was just a little girl, and all I wanted was to feel loved. Grandma took me in and she loved me with all her heart, but the wound my mother had left inside me never truly healed. It was always there, lurking beneath the surface. And even though I was safe with Grandma, the pain of being rejected by my own mother stayed with me for years. "Yes, Mom?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She rarely spoke to me directly anymore, and when she did, it was always cold and distant. Her eyes avoided mine, like I wasn't even there. "You're going to live with Grandma now," she said, her voice flat, emotionless. At first, her words didn't make sense to me. I didn't understand what she was saying. "Like, for the weekend?" I asked, hoping I had heard her wrong. Maybe she meant something temporary. "No," she replied, not even looking at me. "Permanently. Grandma's going to take care of you from now on." The weight of her words sank in slowly. Permanently? My mind raced as I turned to look at Grandma. She was sitting at the table, her face tight with both anger and sadness. I could see how hard this was for her, too. "But why? Did I do something wrong?" I asked, my voice trembling as I tried to make sense of what was happening. My mom didn't even blink. "Don't make this harder than it has to be," she snapped. "I have a real family now. You're just in the way." Grandma's hand hit the table with a loud thud. "Enough, Pamela," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "She's a child, for God's sake." "Your child." My mother didn't seem to care. She shrugged like it was no big deal. "A mistake I've paid for long enough," she said coldly. "Either you take her, or I'll find someone else who will." I felt like I couldn't breathe. I stood there, frozen, as tears filled my eyes. My heart broke. The woman who gave birth to me, the woman who was supposed to love me, didn't even care enough to look at me. I was invisible to her. "Pack your things, sweetheart," Grandma said gently, her voice soft as she walked over to me. She wrapped her arms around me, pulling me into her warmth. "We'll make this work, I promise." Grandma's house became my safe place, my sanctuary. It was the place where I finally felt wanted, where I knew someone cared about me. Every day when I came home from school, she greeted me with a smile. She'd hang my drawings on the fridge and make me feel special, like I mattered. She helped me with my homework, and at night, she'd tuck me into bed with a kiss on my forehead. I had never felt so cared for in my life, but even with all the love Grandma gave me, the hurt from my mother's rejection never fully went away. The wound was always there, deep inside me, like a scar that refused to heal. One night, as Grandma brushed my hair before bed, I couldn't hold it in anymore. The pain had built up so much, and I needed to understand. I turned to her and whispered, "Why doesn't she want me?" Grandma stopped brushing for a moment, her hands pausing in my hair. I could tell she was thinking carefully before she spoke. Then, she gently continued to brush my hair, each stroke slow and soothing. "Oh, Becca," she said softly, her voice full of love and sadness. "Some people just aren't capable of the love they should give. It's not your fault, honey. Never ever think it's your fault." I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I felt comforted by her words, even if it didn't make the pain go away. I had to ask the question that had been bothering me for so long. "But she loves Jason," I said, almost accusingly. "Jason was my brother, the child my mother had always loved, the child she had chosen over me." Grandma resumed brushing my hair, the soft bristles of the brush working through the tangles gently. "Your mother is broken in ways I couldn't fix," she said quietly. "I tried, Becca. God knows I tried to help her. But she's always run from her mistakes instead of facing them. She didn't know how to love you the way you deserved. So, I'm a mistake?" I whispered, the words tasting bitter as I said them aloud. Grandma's hand stopped. She turned me gently to face her, cupping my chin in her warm hand. "No, honey," she said firmly. "You are not a mistake. You are a gift. The best thing that ever happened to me. Your mother just can't see past her own selfishness to recognize what she's throwing away." I leaned into her embrace, feeling the warmth of her love wrap around me. The scent of lavender from her clothes calmed me, and I closed my eyes, trying to hold on to the feeling of safety. But deep down, the hurt from my mother's words lingered. "Will you ever leave me too, Grandma?" I whispered, my voice small and full of fear. Grandma pulled me closer, her arms tightening around me. "Never," she said, her voice strong and fierce. "As long as there's breath in my body, you will always have a home with me. I will never leave you." "Promise?" I asked, needing to hear the words, needing to know she really meant it. "I promise," she said, her voice steady and full of love. "You are my heart, Becca. I will always be here for you." And in that moment, I knew that no matter what happened, I would always have Grandma. Her love was the one thing I could always count on, and it was more than enough to make up for the love I'd never gotten from my mother. When I was 11, Grandma decided we should visit my mother for a family dinner. She thought it was important to try to keep some kind of connection with her, no matter how broken things were between us. I didn't want to admit it to myself, but deep down, I hoped that maybe, just maybe, my mother would finally see the mistake she made and welcome me back into her life with open arms. I thought maybe the years apart would make her realize how much she had thrown away. But when we arrived at her house, everything felt wrong. My mother was sitting at the table, smiling and laughing with Jason, my little brother, as if nothing had ever happened. Jason was just 1 year old, sitting in his high chair with mashed potatoes all over his face, and my mother was wiping them away with a tenderness I had never seen from her before. She looked at him with so much love and attention, but barely even acknowledged me. I stood there, feeling invisible, and finally forced myself to say something. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to sound casual, trying to hide the hurt in my voice. "Oh, you're here," she said, almost like it didn't matter at all. She didn't even look up from Jason. My chest tightened with a sharp pain, but I tried my best not to show how much it hurt. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small card I had made for her. I had spent hours on it, carefully folding the paper and writing "I love you, Mom" in my neatest handwriting. I drew a picture of our family, me, my mother, my stepfather, my baby brother, and Grandma. I used the little crayons I had, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the effort would show her that I still wanted us to be a family again. I handed her the card, my heart pounding in my chest. "I made this for you," I said, my voice quiet and shaky. She barely glanced at it before passing it to Jason. "Here, honey, something for you." My heart broke into pieces. That card wasn't for him, it was for her. I made it for you," I said again, my voice barely a whisper. She waved her hand dismissively as if it didn't matter. "Oh, what would I need it for? I have everything I want, everything, except me." I forced a smile, though inside I was falling apart. Grandma shot me a sympathetic look from across the room, but I didn't want her to see me break down. I didn't want to disappoint her. "Dinner's ready?" Charlie, my stepdad, called from the dining room, completely oblivious to the hurt I was feeling. "Come on," my mother said as she picked up Jason from his high chair. "The roast will get cold." That was the last time I ever tried to reach out to my mother. After that night, I stopped trying to get her attention, stopped hoping she'd care. And it was clear she didn't care either. She moved to another city shortly after. And even though she would occasionally call Grandma, she never once called me, not even on my birthday. Years passed. I grew older, learned to build a life for myself, and found success. I went to college on scholarships, worked hard, and landed a job in marketing. I even bought a little house near Grandma's cottage, thinking I would always want to be close to her, where I felt loved. I dated, but those relationships were hard. It wasn't easy to trust anyone when the one person who was supposed to love me, my own mother, never had. But through it all, Grandma was always there for me. She cheered me on through every milestone. Graduations, birthdays, and accomplishments. She hung my college diploma right next to hers, proudly displaying it, making sure I always knew that I belonged, that I was important to her. But time, as always, doesn't slow down. Grandma grew older, and the changes became more noticeable. Her hands, once strong and steady, became gnarled with arthritis. Her steps slower, and sometimes her memory became foggy. It broke my heart to see her age, but even as she grew weaker, her love never wavered. She was still the person who made me feel safe, who always made sure I knew I was wanted and loved. Even as she faced her own challenges, she continued to give me strength, and I did my best to be there for her, just like she had always been there for me. "Remember when you tried to teach me to bake cookies, and we set off the smoke alarm?" I asked Grandma one afternoon as we strolled through her beautiful garden. The sun was shining, and the air was warm, but there was something peaceful about being with her in the garden, surrounded by flowers and the sound of birds chirping. She laughed softly, her voice still sounding like music, even though she was getting older. "Oh, yes, the neighbors thought the house was on fire. And that fireman, and he was so handsome. I almost didn't mind the embarrassment. You flirted with him shamelessly," I teased with a grin, remembering how she'd joked about it back then. "Well, life's too short not to flirt with a handsome fireman, Rebecca," she said with a wink, giving my hand a gentle pat. Then she looked at me seriously and said, "Promise me something?" I hesitated for a moment, knowing that when Grandma asked me to promise something, it was always important. "Anything," I said, already feeling the weight of what she was about to ask. "When I'm gone," she began slowly, "don't waste time being bitter. Your mother made her choice, and it was the wrong one, but don't let that choice control your life." A chill ran down my spine, even though it was such a warm, sunny day. I stopped walking and looked at her. "You're not going anywhere," I said quietly, trying to push away the feeling of fear that had crept into my heart. She smiled at me, but it was a sad, knowing smile. "We all go somewhere eventually, honey, but just promise me you'll live fully no matter what happens. That's all I've ever wanted for you." "I promise," I whispered, resting my head on her shoulder, just like I had done when I was little. It felt so comforting to be close to her, knowing she was always there for me. I didn't want to think about a time when she wouldn't be. 3 months later, Grandma was gone. It happened so quietly, so peacefully. She passed away in her sleep, just as the doctors had said could happen. They said it was a blessing that she didn't suffer, but to me, it didn't feel like a blessing at all. It felt like my world was falling apart, and I couldn't imagine life without her. She was 78, but it still didn't seem like enough time. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. At 32, I had to bury her. My mother showed up at the funeral, but it didn't feel like she was really there for me. There was no real emotion in her eyes, and she didn't even glance in my direction during the service. It was as if I wasn't even there. I felt a deep sadness, but it wasn't just from the loss of Grandma. It was the reminder that my mother had never really been a part of my life when I needed her. After the funeral, I went back to Grandma's house, and it felt so empty. I wandered from room to room, touching the things that had meant so much to her: the crocheted blanket she had made, the collection of little ceramic birds on the mantel, and the old cookbook in the kitchen, the one with her handwritten notes in the margins. It felt like every corner of the house held a piece of her, and it made my heart ache to know she wasn't there anymore. I missed her so much that it hurt. Just a few days after Grandma's funeral, I was sitting in my living room, lost in my thoughts, trying to adjust to the silence in the house without her. Then there was a knock on my door. I froze. Who could that be? I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, my heart dropped. There she was, my mother. She looked different. Older. The dark hair she used to wear so neatly now had streaks of gray running through it. The lines around her eyes and mouth seemed deeper, like life had weighed heavily on her. But the look in her eyes was the same. Distant, cold, almost calculating. I didn't know what to say. My mind raced, but I couldn't form words. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaky as she clutched her purse with tight, white-knuckled hands. "I just need to talk to you." I felt my whole body tense up, every part of me screaming to shut the door in her face and walk away. The years of hurt, the abandonment, the empty promises, it all came flooding back. But there was something about the way she spoke, something almost fragile, defeated, that stopped me. I stood there, arms crossed, staring at her. "Talk," I finally said, my voice colder than I intended. She looked down, taking a deep breath before meeting my eyes. "Your brother knows about you," she said quietly, almost like she was afraid of what might come next. I felt my breath catch in my throat. My heart raced. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, shifting on her feet before continuing. "Before she passed, your grandmother sent him a message and told him everything." I swallowed hard, trying to process the weight of her words. "He knows about me? All these years he never knew?" She nodded, looking away as if ashamed. "He was too young to remember you, Rebecca. And I didn't let your grandmother talk about you to him. I told her that if she did, she'd never see him again." The words felt like a punch in the gut. I could hardly breathe. My mother hadn't just abandoned me. She had erased me from everything. My brother, my family, my life. I must have looked horrified because she quickly rushed to explain, her voice pleading. "I thought I was doing the right thing. You had grandma and I had my family, my husband, and Jason. It seemed like the only way." I shook my head, the anger building up inside me. "You had a family?" I interrupted her, my voice rising. "You decided I wasn't part of it. You threw me away." Her lip quivered as if she wanted to say something, but no words came out at first. "He won't speak to me," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Not since he read the message last night. His phone had fallen in the water and was turned off for days. He just got the message from Grandma after turning it on last night. He's so angry with me for keeping you a secret, for hiding you from him. I need you to talk to him. Please, Rebecca. Tell him I'm not a monster." I felt a bitter laugh escape me, though it wasn't really a laugh at all. It was hollow, empty. "Not a monster?" I repeated, my voice thick with disbelief. "You abandoned your daughter when she was 10 years old. You pretended I didn't exist, and you threatened your own mother just to keep your secret safe. What would make you a monster then?" Her face fell and she opened her mouth to say something, but I didn't let her. The words just kept coming out, even though I wasn't sure I wanted them to. "You don't get to ask for forgiveness. Not like this. You've already made your choices." She stood there, silent, and for a long moment neither of us spoke. I didn't know what to do. The anger inside me was too much to ignore, but so was the part of me that had hoped for something different all those years ago. Tears welled up in her eyes, but they didn't affect me. I had cried enough for her a long time ago. I had wished for her love, her attention, her care, but all I ever got was disappointment and abandonment. Still, despite all the pain she caused, I hesitated. Not for her, but for my brother. For Jason. For years, I had believed that he had completely forgotten about me, that he had been too young to remember me and had no idea who I was. But the truth was different. He never had the chance to know me at all. He was just a child, caught in the middle of a family that wasn't whole, manipulated by a mother who only saw me as an obstacle in her perfect life. After a long pause, I finally spoke, the words coming out flat and unfeeling. "I'll take his number." My mother let out a shaky sigh of relief. She thought this was some kind of victory, but her expression fell when she realized what I meant. This wasn't for her, it was for Jason. I clarified, making sure she understood exactly what I was saying. "You can give him my number. If he wants to talk to me, then that's his choice. And if he doesn't want to talk to you," I shrugged, not needing to finish the sentence. "That's his choice too." Her face fell even more, and she reached out like she wanted to say something, but I cut her off. "Goodbye, Mom," I said, my voice calm but firm, and I slowly closed the door. I didn't look back. A week later, I met Jason at a quiet cafe across town. My heart was pounding as I waited for him to arrive. I was anxious, not knowing what to expect. But then, I saw him walking through the door. He was tall, with dark hair like our mother's, but there was something different about him. His eyes weren't cold or distant like hers. They were kind, and they looked nervous, like he wasn't sure what to expect from me either. When he spotted me, his expression softened, and I saw the uncertainty in his face. "I'm so sorry," were the first words out of his mouth. I stared at him, confused at first. "You don't have to apologize," I said, shaking my head. "You didn't do anything wrong." He looked down at the table, swallowing hard before speaking again. "But I didn't know. She never told me. I only found out because of Grandma's message. I can't believe she did that to you." I studied his face, trying to make sure I wasn't imagining things. I wanted to see if he was just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. But there was no sign of dishonesty. He was telling the truth. Jason had been just a child when all this happened. He hadn't chosen this. He hadn't chosen to be kept in the dark or to be raised in a house where I wasn't even allowed to exist. "You're nothing like her, Jason," I told him, and I could see the relief in his eyes. He hadn't been responsible for what our mother did. He wasn't to blame. His shoulders sagged, and he let out a long breath as if a heavy weight had been lifted. I've been so angry since I found out. It's like everything I thought I knew about Mom was a lie. I nodded, understanding more than he could. Imagine. How did you find out exactly? I asked, my curiosity getting the better of me. I needed to know how this whole mess had unfolded for him. Jason ran a hand through his hair, looking a little unsure. I got this email from Grandma, he said. It had pictures of you, stories about you, things Mom never told me, and there was a letter explaining everything. I smiled sadly. She was always clever, I said. Even after she passed away, she was still looking out for us. Jason nodded. She wrote that she promised not to tell me about you while she was alive because she was afraid Mom would cut me off from her completely. He shook his head, his expression troubled. I can't imagine being forced to make that choice. It's so cruel. I sighed, the weight of it all settling over me. That's who Mom is. She turns everything into a transaction. A deal. Jason seemed to agree with that, and he pulled out his phone. I have the pictures Grandma sent. Do you want to see them? I nodded, feeling a mixture of emotions as he handed me the phone. We spent the next hour together, flipping through pictures of a life that was both connected and separated. Grandma had carefully documented everything for Jason, creating a bridge to close the gap that our mother had so carefully constructed between us. I always wanted a sibling, Jason said quietly, his voice tinged with regret. I used to beg Mom for a brother or sister. She always told me she couldn't have more children after me. Another lie. I looked at him, my heart heavy with everything we had lost. You know, I said, pushing my empty coffee cup aside. We can't change the past, but we can decide what happens next. He smiled softly, the weight of everything seeming to lift just a little. I'd like to know my sister, if that's okay with you. I felt a warmth spread through me, a feeling I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years. For the first time in over 2 decades, I felt like I was reconnecting with someone I had lost, someone who was truly family, not just by blood, but by choice. I'd like that, I said, my voice full of emotion. I'd like that very much. Over the next few weeks, we continued to talk more. I told him about my life, about how Grandma had raised me with so much love and how I had spent so many years wondering if he ever thought about me. And Jason told me about his life with our mother, how controlling and suffocating she was, how she never let him make his own choices, how everything was always about her. One crisp autumn day, we met at a park, walking down the paths covered in golden and red leaves. The air was cool and everything felt peaceful, as if the world was giving us a moment to breathe and connect. Mom's been calling me nonstop, Jason said, breaking the silence. She's been showing up at my apartment. She even contacted my work. I frowned. That sounds like her. When she wants something, she doesn't stop. She always acted like the perfect mom, Rebecca, Jason continued, kicking at a pile of leaves in frustration. I thought she was just overprotective, but now I realize she's just selfish. Everything's always been about her image, her comfort, and her needs. I nodded, understanding more than I wanted to. Has she always been like that with you? Jason nodded. Yeah, I guess so. I just didn't see it clearly until now. Nothing I did was ever quite good enough, unless it made her look good too. We both knew in that moment that neither of us owed her anything. She had made her choice all those years ago, and now it was time for us to choose our own paths. Weeks passed, and as I built a relationship with my brother, I realized something important. Our mother could keep calling, keep sending messages, and even show up at my door again, but I wasn't going to let her interfere anymore. This time, when she knocked on my door again, I didn't answer. She had made her choice when she abandoned me, and I had made mine. On what would have been Grandma's birthday, Jason and I met at her grave. We brought her favorite yellow daisies, the flowers she always adored, and we stood in silence for a while, each of us lost in our own thoughts. I wish I'd known her better, Jason said quietly. Really known her? I nodded. She would have loved you, I told him. Not because you're perfect, but because you're you. As we walked back to our cars, something caught my eye across the cemetery. A familiar figure stood there, watching us from the distance. Our mother. Jason noticed her too and tensed, his body going rigid beside me. I could feel the old emotions stirring, but I knew what we had to do. We don't have to talk to her, I said, my voice calm but firm. Jason shook his head. No, we don't. We got into our cars and drove away, leaving our mother standing alone among the gravestones. It was a moment of finality. She had lost us, and we had gained something so much more meaningful than her empty promises. In the end, I realized that family isn't always about who gives birth to you. Sometimes it's about the people who see you, choose you, and stay. Grandma had chosen me, and in her final act of love, she had given me back the brother I never knew. Some wounds never fully heal. They leave scars, but around those scars, new life can still grow. And for the first time, I felt whole,